Blessings, blessings, blessings. Hey guys, I'm going live on this channel. Okay, guys, this channel is dedicated to financial growth, education, and understanding of our economic system. So, one of the things I want to discuss is trust, knowing what a trust is and how to actually create a trust. A trust is something like basically an entity that you create to be in control of your estate. Instead of you being in control of your estate, this other entity will be in control of your estate, and it will leave a lot of the liability off of you. It's a lot more to trust. So this is going to be a series of videos. I'm teaching myself as well because I am an entrepreneur and I want to make sure that all my assets are protected to the highest level as possible. So from my research, I have found that it is more financially stable to create trust accounts and actually have trustees and you know choose beneficiaries to receive benefits from whatever trust that you create. And it's an entity that does not have to go through probate court if anything was to happen to you, the person who is in charge, well, the person who actually created the trust. So I'm going to start by reading this document. It's about trust law, and I'm just going to go chapter to chapter. This is chapter 5, creating a living trust. A living trust a living trust, if you want to be formal, allows you to put your assets in a trust while you're still alive. So it's something like a living will. If your living trust is revocable, and I mean as almost all are, it gives you great flexibility. You or someone in whom you have confidence manage the property while usually for the benefit of you or your family. So this is actually the reason why you create the trust. One, for it to be protected and you don't have to go through probate court, and then you can actually choose beneficiaries to receive money or allocated properties or whatever you have in this trust at certain times with certain stipulations. Most people name themselves the trustee and find there is no difference between managing a trust and managing your own property. They have the right to buy, sell, and give property as before, through though the property is in the trustee's name than the owner. So I'll be the owner, and the trustee can be someone that I designate, that I trust, or I can be the trustee, but I'm going to go down more into the reading so you can understand how I can separate myself from being the owner and the trustee. Because if you're the owner, you behave in one way, and as a trustee, you have to behave in a way that is within law, and you have to follow all of the requirements of the trust. And that's what makes it a trust. As okay, living trust is one of the two main ways to avoid probate. The other is joint tenancy or survivorship, and then we're going to go over that. One of the purpose of probate is to determine the disposition of the property you leave at death. That's one of the reasons, or through life, because it depends on how you allocate the monies out. Since the trustees of your living trust owns that property, there is no need for probate court. Living trusts have become extremely popular in the recent years, even though there are useful, simple, and relatively inexpensive way to plan your estate. They do not magically solve all your problems. For example, a state have simplified their probate procedures. Many of the advantage of living trusts have diminished. Okay, so because the living trust has been, starting to evolve, it actually caused probate court to change some of their procedures to be kind of be in line, I guess, with trust laws and things like that to make their process a little bit more easier. Deciding whether a living trust is right for you depends on the size of your estate, what kind of assets is contained, and what plans you have for yourself and your family. Requirements for setting up a living trust vary from state to state. So, like I'm in Georgia, so I went in to look up my state law, some of them in regards to. So I went to just. I started at just the U.S. law. This is the last updated one on mine is 2016 Georgia Code Title 53. Wills, Trust, and Administration of Estate, Chapter 12, Article 3, and that one is about revocable trust. So you have to go reference the law of your state to make sure that you're within the guidelines of actually opening a trust and it be acknowledged as a trust. Because if you don't follow the laws, then they're just going to look at it as another business that you open. If you're sitting there just allocating money out of the trust, just taking it out willy-nilly and not actually following lines, like it has to be in with what you set up. All right. So, and generally, you execute a document saying that you're creating a trust to hold property for the benefit of yourself and your family or whoever you want to be benefit. Some trust declaration lists major assets as home investments that you're putting in the trust. Other refers to other documents, a schedule in which you list the exact properties that will be in the trust or may simply transfer the property to a trust under a trust agreement. So, for instance, if you have a home that you paid off of, or even if you didn't, you can switch that home into the trust. You can change the name of, and you can do this through your mortgage company as well, and you can get it changed into your trustees, that name, and when it comes to seizure of the property and things like that, if it was, it's not as easy because you are the debtor and the trustee is not. So they will have to come after the debtor and not the trustee, and actually the actual physical things that it's holding, they can't really touch for the most part. If you ain't got no assets, they can't take shit from you. What you gonna do? Okay. Hmm. So that's one of the things to think about, just as a protective measure for yourself. In any case, you can add or subtract property whenever you want. You will have a change. You will have to change the ownership registration on whatever property you put into the trust, the deeds, the brokers' accounts, bank accounts, from your own name to the trustee's name. Example, the John A. Smith trustee. That can be your first last name, trustee. As long as it says trustee and is different from your name just a little bit, then your father can't be your exact name. If you make yourself the trustee, you will have to remember to sign yourself in transactions as John A. Smith trustee instead of using your own name. When you put property into a trust, the trust becomes its owner, which is why you must transfer title and property from your own name and enjoy the property. And because you do, in the co eyes of tax authorities, the property in the trust belongs to you, the grantor, for tax purposes. If you receive income from the assets, you must still report the income from the trust directly on your income tax. So you can't not report things that's going on in the trust, but like the transactions, but they're under a different tax criteria depending on how the trust is set up, especially if you're a foreign entity setting up a trust. Okay, think about it. Um, if you receive income from the assets, you must still report the income from the trust directly on your tax income return. The trust itself often files a separate income tax statement as well through the IRS. Doesn't require one of the grantors or trustees. It says, though the IRS doesn't require one if the grantor and trustees are the same person. So if I'm the grantor and trustee, I can just file it on my taxes and it will show up. But if the trustee is different, like if I allocate that position to my mother, she will have to, basically put under her taxes that she's the trustee of it. But that does not mean she's the person who purchased it. So we're going to read more to see what type of liability that the trustee will have in regards to if you're a separate entity, um, making someone else the trustee. If you receive income from the assets, okay, so I read that. The trustee itself must file a separate income tax with the IRS. One, if the grantor and the trustee is the same, the grantor is the person who actually structurized the trust. Okay. It is advisable to apply to the Internal Revenue for an employer's identification number, which is the EIN number. This is why when you're doing it, you separate yourself. You're not going to use your social security number. You will use the EIN number to set up the trust account. Okay? So that's one thing and when you set up and get the EIN number, this is what falls under if you're going to be a foreign entity or not, and that's what changed your tax criteria. But you have to be able to reflect that you're a foreign entity, and you have to just be able to back up your shit, whatever you put there, because if they call you in, you don't have to show it. So I advise you just put, the right facts. If you want to declare your foreign, like for instance, I can do a foreign entity because I have family that have land in Haiti. So I can start a business and say it's a foreign entity and still do commerce out there because I actually have an address that can be trackable that's related to me as a foreign entity, and they don't know how long I stay in the United States versus there or whatever. So those type of things, or regardless, you can live here and do a business in another country, and doesn't mean that you shouldn't be obligated to their tax liabilities, which is pretty different from the United States, which sometimes can be a benefic. It could be beneficiary to you. All right. You can make anyone you want the trustee. You can also name alternative trustee, sometimes knowing a successor trustee to take over in an event the original trustee death or incapacitated. Okay, so you always have a backup plan. Moving on, in a revocable living trust, you keep the right to manage your property, whether you're the trustee or not, is a revocable one. Since you have the right to change the terms of the trust and trustee and the property in the trust at any time, so it sounds like a revocable trust would be more suitable for adjustment because they have irrevocable, revocable trust, and I think they have another type of one. So those are two categories, but then they branch off to the type of trust you can create. So the irrevocable ones is ones that you just cannot change. The revocable ones is the ones that you could adjust, and as they say, change the property, the trustees, anytime. When you die, your alternative trustees distribute the property according to the terms of the trust. Usually, your alternative trustee is your supervising spouse, or an adult child, but you can name a bank or a trust company if you're willing to pay their fees. Living trust can extend long after you die. You can have this hundreds of years. If you got enough money in the property to give out for 100 years, you can hold it. You can hold your property for 50, 20 years and say, I don't want to release to my kids until they have a steady job or this amount in their bank account to maintain the home. And once they have to get this, they can have it. And those can be part of the terms so the beneficiary can receive the estate. So a living trust can be extended long after you die. If you want the trust to benefit your infant child, for example, you might specify that the trust makes gift to them as needed until they are fully grown. Living trusts like wills give you a wide flexibility in distributing your property. For example, a trust agreement could say, at my death, my trustee is to give my car to my son Cain, my coat to my son Jacob, and so on. Your instruction tells the trustee to continue managing assets for the benefit of someone else, distributing them to any beneficiary you choose, or perform some combination of these actions. If beneficiaries of your living trust dies before you do, the property reverts to you unless you're named another person, contingency beneficiary for those gifts. Okay? Begin to get clear understanding of how trust works. Unless taxes are a worry, and they won't be in the vast majority of a state, you should be sure to retain the right to revoke or amend your trust whenever you wish. It says, see chapter 9. We're going to be going down that road a little couple weeks down the line. Have your lawyer create a revocable trust agreement, or you can create it yourself. That's why we're reading and learning, which allows you to change the terms or trustees, or just to forget the whole thing. Yes. Um, it can be a bother to set up and fund the living trust, but the payoff for your family comes when you die. If Ida, Idle, whatever, wanted her property to go to her friend Rick, for example, she would put in the trust and name him co-trustee and successor trustee. Then, when she dies, he becomes the sole trustee and acting in the capacity, transferring the trust property to the beneficiary himself. Since the property does not have to go through probate, there is no break in continuity. A living trust can contain other trusts. So you can have a living trust and the trust inside of a trust. Trust. It's good. It's like a bank account inside of a bank account. Okay, would give you nice flexibilities. For example, if you plan to leave some of your property to your minor children in the trust, you can specify in your trust that the children's property goes into it. You can design trust for several beneficiaries, all funded usually at your death by the assets in your living trust. Bear with me, God. I'm getting over a little, a little something. Other advantages, helping in managing your affairs. If you have a trustee, a living trust can manage your property. Say you rent out condos, your trustee can take over the management while you receive the income minus the trustee's fees. A living trust can also provide a way to care for you and the property in case you become disabled, which is why many people use them. So, for instance, if you have a living trust and we're gonna talk about that, excuse me, and you put your home in a living trust. Let's say you just got that and it's just you, and you have a trustee. And you have your trustee, and within that trust you can allocate where you want your monies to go when you don't feel well or if you're sick. So you say, and any time that I fall ill, I allocate to my trustees to pay this bill, that bill, this will get the lawn done, do this, do that, whatever, and this is what should be done once a month while I'm under this state. So you can even put those things into your trust, any trust you want to. It's like the trust is so flexible. It can be for big things, it can be for something like that, which is like one home and the management of that one home, or a vehicle and the maintenance of that vehicle. You understand? So I just wanted to give you an example. I am going to like sum this part up right now, and then I'm going to go into protect your privacies in my next video. Okay, so let's just finish help in managing your affairs. So a living trust can also provide a way to care for you and your property in case you become disabled, in which I was just saying this, which is why many people use them. You'll typically set up a revocable living trust, funding it adequately, or giving someone in whom you have confidence power of attorney to fund it in the event of your incapacity. So if you're receiving Social Security, you want to make sure that your Social Security checks are going into that trust and that person is dependable and reliable to do that. Because if they don't, that's against the law and they're going to go to jail anyway. And that's what we're going to talk about. Trustees is a very, very important position, and then you have to follow these guidelines. So you can't really steal nobody's stuff as a trustee. Okay, funding it adequately and naming the reliable alternative trustee to manage it should you become ill. This avoids the delay, the red tape, expenses, court order, guardianship, and at the same time, the trustees, excuse me, can take over any duty you had providing for your family members. Excuse me. That means I need to wrap this video up because I am getting over a little something, but I wanted to share with you the first part of how to set up a trust. This is all about money management and mechanics, and I want you to start to research some of the things I gave you. And our next roundabout, we're going to talk about, excuse me, protecting your privacy, as well as easy to create and changes when it comes to the living trust. Hold on one second, guys. Something trying to mess up my hustle, but it's okay. It'll be all right. I just wanted to get through at least this one video with y'all. I was going back. It's like, should I do this? Shouldn't I? Knowing I was under the weather, but I wanted to start it. So that's my first video for you guys. I'll leave the information in the description below for you so you can read yourself. And leave your comments. Let me know what you think. And let me know if you really want to hear part 2 or the reading of the trust documents, and I'm going to continue to teach you about finance, gold, money mechanics on this page, as well as building the trust, because we're all about building a legacy for our family and our friends and taking control of our estate. Have a blessed one.